because of my congestive heart failure. I was operating at 12% of my heart's capacity, and I had been given 6 months or less to live. And so I said, Dr. Vyas, you remember that you said if I was sober for 6 months, you would put me on a heart transplant list. And he said, I remember. He goes, well, let's take a look. And Dr. Vyas is standing there. He goes, well, Larry, your heart is fine. You don't need a transplant. You've been given a second lease at life. I said, Cecil, how often do you see a complete reversal of congestive heart failure like this? And he looks at the computer screen and he looks back at me and he goes, this is the first.
Welcome to the Byond Sunday podcast, where we continue the conversation of God beyond Sunday. Today's guest is the one, the only. We got Larry Metzler. Round of applause, everybody.
I like applauding myself.
We also, the second too, Metzler the second. We also got behind the scenes, my new production hire. We got Frank Gonzalez. I'm not going to point the camera at you. All right, Larry. So I've heard a lot about you, right? But let's hear it. Let's hear it from you. You have a powerful testimony. So let's get into it. Let's get into your testimony. However it starts, where, like, how you grew up, all that stuff.
Sure. Well, again, I was born locally here. I was adopted at birth by my dad and my mom. And I guess
so. You're Fresno local.
Well, Visalia, but brought to Fresno the same day as my birth. But yes,
Central Valley local.
There you go.
There we go.
And a little bit after that, I was adopted. My parents had the option or the possibility to adopt my two twin sisters. And I guess my mom was already having some issues at the time, so my dad didn't think it would be good to bring on any more responsibility. So I do have two sisters out there somewhere that I've never met.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad and mom ended up divorcing, and then it was a few years later that she committed suicide. So it was just me and my dad my whole life, you know. And although he was busy, productive member of society, involved in everything underneath the sun, I got to experience a lot of that stuff with him, which was a benefit to me later on in life, because I was raised in an adult world, had to learn how to deal and communicate with adults. It paid off, later on. So I was very...
That happens sometimes.
Oh, okay. Very good. So, went to school here locally and spent a lot of time at my grandparents' ranch in Biola. And loved going out there. Twice as a kid, I had an opportunity to go to Europe with my dad and people, and instead I chose to go to my grandparents' ranch. So I absolutely loved being out there at their vineyards, shooting my rifles, and just having fun. And I would say that a lot of the beginning issues that I ever had in life is when my grandmother passed. I became angry. She was, very important to me. I loved her very much. And I guess I didn't quite know how to deal with her passing. So I became angry. And my dad not knowing how to deal with that, and getting counseling and things like that, I ended up in a place called Cedar Vista Hospital over there off of Herndon and Cedar. And in the adolescent wing. And it basically was a psychiatric hospital of some sorts. And I was in the adolescent wing. And I had the record there for what's called seclusion. So when I would go off and get angry, they would call Dr. Arms to the adolescent unit, Dr. Arms to the adolescent unit, and all the big guys from the other three units would come over and tackle me. And they strap you down and you spend some time in seclusion until you can act or, tell them you're calm. So that was kind of an interesting experience as an adolescent. But
how old were you around this time?
13, 14.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And so from there, I went into a private group home called the Shepherd Home and spent a little time there. And then after that, I got to go do a survival course in Montana there was about 12 or 13 other people my age. And some places call it hell camps, but it actually was a great experience because it taught you that you can do things on your own, that you can survive off the land. And it was a great experience, actually. Looking back, I'm glad I got to do that. And so that paid off well. So I got to do some neat things because my dad was involved in a lot of things here in the community. It was fun being able to experience that with him. And our family is what's called German Russian, Volga Germans, and one of the original nationalities here in Fresno. And so I was really involved in what's called AHSGR, the American Historical Society of Germans from Russia. And that was really neat too, and got to be around just some really cool people. So my childhood and was filled with good experiences. And I thank my dad for that, because he afforded me those opportunities. So although I had a little bit of an anger issue, kind of dealt with it as I got older. I got into drugs as soon as I had the freedom of having a car at the age of 16, and having that freedom. Started off with doing marijuana and things like that, and quickly escalated to other stuff, coke and whatever. And that whole addiction lasted for about 7 years, and in and out of jail. And at one point, my father said, if you get in trouble anymore, don't call me. No more attorneys, no more bail. You're on your own. And the one time I ended up in jail, I got up out of my cot, or my bunk, and there was a pastor inside the pod having a Bible study with some of the other guys there. And I knew he was a pastor because he was in normal clothes and they all had Bibles. And I looked over at him, and he made eye contact with me, and I turned away and looked at the TV. And then when I looked back at him, he was still looking at me, and he goes like this, and called me over. And one of the other guys that was sitting at the table got up, let me sit down, and he introduced himself to me. His name was Ernie. He was a chaplain for the sheriff's department. And he asked me if I was tired of living the life that I was living, and if I wanted to accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I said yes. And
How old were you around this time?
I was 22-ish, 22.
So from 16, so you're 16 years old is when you started
Drugs,
and then at 22 is when this was happening.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I accepted, and we said the sinner's prayer, and it was an odd feeling. I felt that there was a humongous burden that was lifted off of me. And that night, I wanted to call my dad and share with him what I had done. I knew that I wasn't supposed to call him or ask for help, and I had no intentions of asking for anything, but I just wanted to share, since he is the most important person in my life. I wanted to share with him that decision that I made that day. So I called him collect that night, and he accepted. And I said, hey, Dad, I said, I just wanted you to know that I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior today. And he said to me, he goes, that's good. He goes, maybe you'll get your life turned around now. And I was like, all right, Dad, I love you. Talk to you later. Didn't expect anything. And I just wanted him to know. And I'm glad I was able to share that with him. And next thing you know, the next day they called out on the loudspeaker, Metzler, you have an attorney interview. And I thought it was odd because the public defenders normally do not go to jail and visit you. They see you about 5 minutes before you actually walk into court. So I got ready and went out. They led me to this little meeting room, and there's an attorney there standing there. And he says, hi, he introduced himself to me. He said, your father's retained me. He goes, for whatever reasons, he believes that you're ready to turn your life around. And he goes, I'm not here to get you off. I'm here to get you help. And I was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
And one thing led to another. The DA, because I had been given so many opportunities in court prior to for little stupid stuff, she kind of felt like it was time for me to visit prison. And he wanted to get me into a program called Teen Challenge. And just accepting Christ as my Savior, it sounded really intriguing, and that's definitely what I wanted to do. And it worked out to where I was able to go to Teen Challenge, and it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I excelled there, finished the program, did my 4-month internship at Teen Challenge, and while I was down south at a place called the Castle, that's where you finish up the program out in Riverside, I learned about Calvary Chapel churches, and I had visited a few of them, and found out about Calvary Chapel Bible College. And I wanted to continue my Christian education, if you will. And so I went to the Bible College one day on a pass to check it out, visit it, and was really impressed. And it was located in Marietta, California, right below Riverside. And so after I graduated and did my internship at Teen Challenge, I went to Bible College, and God just started opening doors left and right. Looking back, it was all Him. And I was placed on security there, and then I was hired on to security, and worked my way up to where I was the assistant director of Calvary Chapel Conference Center. Wow. And the Bible College and the Conference Center were located on the same 47-acre property. It was an old hot springs resort back in the early 1900s. It was like where the movie stars would go and get bathed in, mud baths and stuff. And Calvary Chapel of Costa Mesa and Pastor Chuck purchased the property, spent a fortune in redoing it, and turned it into a Bible College and Conference Center. And I was the assistant director there for about 7 years. And met my wife there, and got married. And from there, I kind of got into hotel management because of the conference center, and worked locally at a Comfort Inn and Suites here in Marietta, and worked my way up to a GM, and then I worked my way into being the regional manager for the family that owned a bunch of hotels. And I oversaw their West Coast hotels, got to do one from the ground up in Anchorage, which was exciting. Alaska's beautiful. Great experience.
So this is in Alaska.
Say again?
You're in Alaska?
Yeah, Anchorage, Alaska, yeah. So it was a Comfort Suites. It was a brand new build. I flew up to hire the brand new staff, the housekeeping, and it was beautiful. Yeah, I liked it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really
so cool.
Yeah.
Here, let me do one thing real quick.
Yeah.
A little bit farther.
Okay. All right, cool. So during that, though, because I was busy and whatever, my focus kind of fell off as far as Christ is concerned. Going to church became.
How old are you? How old are you when you started falling off?
So I'd say 33, 34-ish, somewhere around there.
Okay, so you were 16 when you started drugs, 22 when you went to...
when I got saved and went to Teen Challenge.
When you went to Teen Challenge. And then 33. So you, for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 or 11. Yeah.
10 or 11 years. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, having a hotel that I oversaw in Kingman, Arizona, one in Anchorage, and then based out of the one in Marietta. I was on the road a lot, flying around. I got to fly to Hays, Kansas quite a bit to their other hotels, do stuff for them there. So church became less and less popular to me. I ended up getting a divorce from my wife, and just put God on the back burner. And one thing led to another. I ended up purchasing a insurance agency in Temecula, and ran that with my fiance. We had that for about 7 years. My father helped me to purchase that, and sold that. Got back into hotels. Was the general manager of Motel 6 in Simi Valley. And right around that time, I found out that my fiance was cheating on me with my best friend, who was going to be the best man in our wedding. He was also my executive chef at Calvary Chapel Conference Center. So that was a big blow. It was kind of hard. And that was my excuse to get back into drugs. And I did.
You're like, what, 42 right now? 42 at this time?
Yeah, about right around there. Yeah. And so got back into drugs pretty heavily. My maintenance man that I had hired at the Motel 6 in Simi Valley, he was also a drug dealer. So it was readily available. And, just started not caring. And I had actually attempted to quit the motel because I was losing weight and I wanted to not burn a bridge, This motel that I was hired by G6 Hospitality, which is the parent company Motel 6, it was a troubled one. And within the about 7-8 months that I was there, I brought it up in ratings from the second worst in our region to the second best.
Oh, wow.
And it was a lot of hard work, started fresh with new staff and hands-on training and put a lot of time in it. And so it was something to be proud of. And because of that, because I started doing drugs and losing weight, I just didn't want to ruin what I had accomplished there. And I wanted to leave before, they caught on. And so I had tried to resign, and my regional manager kind of ignored it. And so then I resigned again and made sure he saw the letter. And he was completely just overwhelmed. He was like, "Larry, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I have health problems and I need to go back to Fresno, to be around my family's doctors and whatever I said." And I don't know if he believed or not, but he just shook his head and he said to me, he goes, "Larry, I had plans to go to the top and I was going to take you with me," because he was impressed what I had accomplished there. And I said, "Well, I just need to, I don't know if he knew I was doing drugs or not, or if he cared, but I cared. And I just wanted to get out of it before everyone else knew." And so.
You told him that?
No, I didn't tell him that.
Oh, I was like,
no,
did you tell him? Like,
no, I just told him I had health problems.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
So does he know? Did he know? Like, did you keep ever in contact with him?
I did not. No. So once my fiance that was cheating on me ratted me out to my father and said, "Larry's on drugs. He's got all these people going up to the house there." I lived in Simi Valley, which is right up above. I lived in Santa Paula, which is right above Simi Valley. And she had come by a few times and saw, all these gangsters and whatever hanging out. And so she ended up to take the attention off herself, ratting me out to my dad, saying, "Larry's on drugs," whatever. So he called me one day and he goes, "Well, maybe you need to move back to Fresno." I was like, ugh. And I really didn't want to because, Fresno's always kind of had a dark cloud, I thought, for me. So reluctantly, I did. I moved back to Fresno, and I was here for about 3 weeks. I got arrested by the Career Criminal Task Force. I was in the Fresno B. I got busted for guns and drugs. And I did not know I was in the Fresno B the next day till a friend of mine called me and she said, "Larry, what happened?" I go, "What do you mean what happened?" And she says, "Oh, you haven't seen it yet." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Well, you're in the newspaper." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And the first thing that I thought about is the embarrassment that I was going to be to my dad. And sure enough, go out, and get the paper. And there I am. There's my picture and the whole story and all that other fun stuff. So basically, continued to do drugs. At a certain point, when I left living with my father at our ranch in Biola, I moved in with some people that were no good. And I found out that I had congestive heart failure, diabetes, and a few other things. And because of the drug use and my health being so bad, I was retaining a lot of water. I would get what's called weeping from the legs, where water kind of escapes through your legs. And I was just in bad shape. And the people that I was living with took advantage of that. They thought that for some reason, if I passed away, they would get my car I had a BMW that I used to let them drive, this, that, whatever else. And while I was there at the house dying, some friends came by to check up on me, and they told the owners of the house, you need to call 911. Larry's dying. And their exact words were, shh, don't be a snitch. And
Oh,
they
wow.
told me this whole story sometime later. But according to them, they ended up calling 911 because they knew that I was not doing well. And they said, Larry, it was something straight out of E.T. It was such a trip, Larry, because it was December. It was foggy. When the paramedics got there, they looked at the condition that you were in your room. And I guess that because I was out of it or whatever was going on, I was using the restroom in the bed that I was laying in. And so and my dog that I had, Sadie, she wouldn't leave the room or leave my side. So apparently she was also using the restroom in the same room. So you can imagine the filth that I was living in. And according to them, the paramedics saw the filth. And next thing you know, these white trucks pull up. These guys with hazmat suits came, and they couldn't get the stretcher, from what they said, to the room that I was in. And so they kind of carried me out to the little family room and then put me on the stretcher. And I guess while they were taking me out to the ambulance, I was yelling, no, no. I don't remember any of this, but this is what they told me.
You don't remember any of it?
I don't remember any of it.
Even on the bed, you don't remember any of that?
I don't remember any of it.
Wow.
So maybe I was already falling into a diabetic coma or whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's why they said they likened it to E.T. It's foggy. They're carrying me out. These guys with white suits.
Hazmats,
Yeah, and I'm yelling,
wow.
no. So what's interesting, though, is I thought I was sleeping. Apparently I was in a coma at the trauma center. I was being dealt for the diabetes, the congestive heart failure, all the fluid. And because I was laying in that filth for such a long period of time, I had developed a bed sore on the back of my leg. And I was also septic. And so they were dealing with all that stuff. And as far as I knew, I was asleep. And during that time that I thought I was asleep, I had a few dreams. One recurring dream was hearing rapid response team to room such and such, rapid response team to room such and such. And I was in the bed closest to the window, and there was a curtain and another bed. But I remember people coming around the curtain with a briefcase. And in that dream that I thought I was having, that's when I would find peace. And I would just close my eyes. Well, apparently that rapid response team was being called to my room all those times. And while I was in this coma, they had to defibrillate my heart 7 different times to keep me alive. And so that's exactly what I was seeing come into my room, after hearing that over the intercom system. And while I thought I was sleeping, I remember I had a decision that I could live or die. And I looked one way, everything was dark, and the other way, everything was light. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I'm back on drugs. I'm a big failure to my dad. I'm going to let myself go. And so I did. And I started to slip into that darkness. And at the very last minute, I thought, well, maybe I can get sober. Maybe I could be okay. Maybe I could be a good dad. Maybe I could be a good son. Maybe, maybe. But I couldn't get out of the darkness. It was the weirdest thing. Like I was struggling to live, and it wasn't working. I wasn't getting to the light. And the only thing that I knew to do is to start praying in Jesus' name. And I said, Jesus, every which way possible that I've ever read in the Bible or heard. Dear God, in Jesus' name, Jesus of Nazareth, please let me live, Jesus, And it worked. Not only did I get to the light, but I woke up out of my coma. And I remember when I woke up from my sleep, the nurse was standing there staring at me like, bright-eyed. And I don't know if I was praying out loud or what, but I remember looking down at my body, and I looked like an alien because I had not eaten for so long, and a bloated stomach and little skinny legs, and I just started crying. And I said to her, I said, "Who's responsible for wanting to keep me alive here?" I knew Jesus is the one that brought me out of my coma and brought me to the light, but I wanted to know, was my dad involved or what? And she said, "Well, your dad's very concerned about you." And I said out loud to her, I said, "That poor man, he can't seem to let me go, and I can't find a creative way of dying." And I say that because I've totaled a lot of cars. I've been in many accidents. People refer to me as the guy that refuses to die. I've totaled 12 cars.
Wow.
I like fast cars, and I had a lot of cool cars growing up. My dad wanted me to experience that, and I got them. So a lot of car accidents, a lot of totaled cars. Came out of the coma, and I still continued to use drugs for a period of 3-4 years ish, and ended up homeless. I lived on Golden State and Herndon in a metal tunnel. The metal tunnels are still there. They are across Golden State from the Starbucks there. And apparently, while using drugs one day with another homeless person, I had a seizure. And I woke up at St. Agnes to a nurse saying to me, "Larry, there's room at CAP. Do you want to go?" I had never heard of CAP. I assumed it was rehab, and I nodded yes. I don't remember how they got me to CAP. I don't know if an ambulance took me or if CAP came and got me, because when I have these seizures, I'm kind of out of it for a few days. It takes me a little while to recoup. What I do remember when I came to at CAP, I remember laying in my bunk. I was on a lower bunk, and I thought to myself, I do not want to do this anymore. I'm tired of the drugs again, and I knew that I needed help. And I rolled off my bed, I got on my knees, and I prayed. And I was just like, "Lord, you got to help me here again. I don't want to be doing this anymore, and I can't do it without you. I need your help. Please help me again." And he was probably thinking, "All right, Metzler, we're going to do this again, And he did. I ended up getting excused from CAP 30 days later for fighting. Ended up back homeless in Herndon, in my tunnel. Had acquired a Bible while I was at CAP that I took with me. And when I wasn't fundraising, holding my sign out there on the medium at the intersection, trying to raise money for food, I was in my tunnel reading my word. And I stayed sober. Reading his word is what kept me strong, which reminded me that he has, a lot better hope in a future for me than being homeless and being on drugs. And that's what kept me going. And although there were drugs all around me, people would say to me as they're smoking out and doing their thing, and I'm not, they would just say, "Larry, I don't know how you do it." And I would say, "It's Jesus," or I would just point up. And it was kind of cool because I'm sure I look back and I know that there was a lot of seeds planted. And if nothing else, people learned or realized, because I was living proof, despite their, they were just surprised. They were overwhelmed. They realized that you can do it, and with Jesus, all things are possible. And on March 13th, 2024, I celebrated my year sobriety. Some of my friends that were still deep in their addiction from Herndon actually came to my year chip night. It was neat because after I became sober, while living out there, about 2 years prior to that, I remember driving by North Point Church and seeing a banner on the corner talking about Celebrate Recovery. And I remember thinking, oh, that would be cool to check out sometime. And so since North Point wasn't far away from where I lived in my tunnel, I decided to check it out. I would walk to Celebrate Recovery sometimes take the bus, sometimes take a bike before it got ripped off. And I started going to Celebrate Recovery and going to church there on Sundays. And it was weird because as I would fundraise during the day to earn money for food, I put on my sign that I was sober, and I put my sobriety date. And one day, a gal named Tommy and her husband that used to drive by back and forth, I think to Madera, they had said, hey, check out, North Point, yada, yada, yada. And that night specifically, they said that there was a dinner there. So I walked over there and had dinner out there on the lawn. And then sometime after that, while holding my sign, a guy named Ryan Russell pulls up, and he says to me, he goes, is that really your sobriety date? I go, yes, it is. And he goes, well, get in. I'll buy you dinner. So I got in. We went to Panda Express there by Target. And as we're talking, and I was sharing that I go to Celebrate Recovery in North Point Church, he was like, well, I do too. And that night that I met him, that we were having dinner, it happened to be Wednesday. He goes, well, let's go to Celebrate Recovery tonight. And I was like, let's go. And so we went. And since then, Ryan has been just a humongous blessing. He's picked me up to go to the men's Bible study on Saturday mornings. He picks me up to go to Celebrate Recovery. He picks me up to go to church. He's been, he's just been awesome. Him, his family, Sylvia, his son Christian, just been a humongous encouragement. And I thank God every day for them. I've got to meet some amazing people at North Point, such as yourself.
And
Frank. And
Frank.
Absolutely. And God has just, he's done amazing things. One miracle after another miracle after another miracle. One of the biggest miracles is that my cardiologist, because of my congestive heart failure, wanted to do an ATT. I think that's what it's called. And basically, they put you under and they go and put a camera in your esophagus to get a closer look at your heart. And keep in mind that at one point, because of my congestive heart failure, I was operating at 12% of my heart's capacity, and I had been given 6 months or less to live. And so when I was in the operating room, Dr. Vyas comes in, and I reminded him, at that point, I had been sober for about 4 months already. Okay. And so I said, Dr. Vyas, you remember that you said if I was sober for 6 months, you would put me on a heart transplant list. And he said, I remember. He goes, well, let's take a look. I said, all right. So next thing I know, the anesthesiologist comes in and I'm out. And I wake up after the procedure, and Dr. Vyas is standing there. And he goes, well, Larry, he goes, your heart is fine. You don't need a transplant. You've been given a second lease at life. And I was blown away. And 6 days later, I had my follow-up appointment at his office. And I met with Cecil, his nurse practitioner. And Cecil kind of reiterated what Dr. Vyas had told me. And I said to him, I said, Cecil, how often do you see a complete reversal of congestive heart failure like this? And he looks at the computer screen and he looks back at me and he goes, this is the first.
Wow.
And so, again, I give God all the glory, because without him, I wouldn't have been able to be sober. I wouldn't have been able, he just did everything. And as I was mentioning before, it's been one miracle after the next, and I give God all the glory. And so now I just like to share with other people what he's done in my life, let people know that sobriety is possible with God. I encourage people to go to Celebrate Recovery, get plugged in, get to experience what God's word promises, a future, a hope. He has nothing but good intentions for our life, and I'm getting to live them out. I'm getting to see him work his miracles, and I just consider myself blessed and fortunate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that is like a powerful, powerful testament for God to take you going through all those trials, those tribulations, your moments, your low moments, and to and to find Christ there, right? And even though it's like the prodigal son, right? Like you go to Christ and then you kind of mess up.
Mhm.
You go to Christ and you fall back, and you go to Christ again, and it's very humbling too for me to hear this. You know, hearing somebody like you, what you've gone through, and to think like, man, like God is good, and
All the time.
yeah, and he'll pull through for everybody.
All the time.
Yeah, that's super cool. What's the difference between when you found Christ when you were 22 and now how you are now? What's the distinction between those two?
You know, it's interesting that you asked that, because looking back, being at Bible college and running the conference center and stuff, I did not have, at least I don't think I did. Maybe God was close to me, but I don't feel like I had that closeness with him like I do now. I do believe that to get my complete attention, he allowed me to get to the point where I had absolutely nothing. And all I had was him. And then he was like, all right, now I'm going to rebuild you. And that way there's no misunderstandings. I get to get all the credit. And that's exactly what he did. And so I just, between then and now, I just think that I had to get to a place where there was nothing, and all I could do is look up and see Jesus, period.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Just being humbled, pretty much, right?
Very much so, because like I tell people now, I did take things and people for granted. It's a simple truth. And now acts of kindness, friendship, people going the extra step, even though it might be a burden or whatever, I appreciate it all. And I thank God all the time for the people that he's brought into my life that have just been encouragement. Friends that have stuck closer to me through this time, more so than family.
Yeah.
In church, we call it our forever family. And that's exactly what they are. And I'm very thankful for them.
And what's your relationship like with your father now? Is he still around?
He is still around. He's 83. Come July, we're going to be reconnected. And
you haven't seen him in a while.
I have not seen him in a while. I know that he is familiar with my sobriety. I know that he knows where I live. People keep me up to date on his what he is doing, and pictures of things that happen on Facebook and stuff like that. So when I see him, I'm going to apologize for putting him through all the crap that I've done in my whole life. The good, the bad, he's always stuck by me. And I think that God even had to take him away for a period of time so that, again, it was just me and Jesus.
Right, because you falling back on your father in a
Correct.
sense, right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And so, do you have children?
I do have children.
Okay, so what's that like?
I have two daughters.
daughters.
One that's struggling right now, and one that's younger, that's in Arizona. Her name is Mercy, my pride and joy. And with my addiction, I stayed away, although prior to that, I was very involved in her life. She lives in Arizona with her mom. And we would go there, on field trips, and she would come to Temecula to visit us, my fiance and I, and things of that nature. And when I got back into drugs, I kind of kept away. So now that I have some sobriety underneath my belt, I look forward to God opening a door for her to be reintroduced into my life.
Yeah.
And that's something I pray about all the time. Something that I would ask other people to pray about, just that God would open that door like he has in so many other areas of my life.
And I'm also curious, like you being in the midst of going back to addiction, what's the mindset like of being there? And what is, if you were to have one, the best way to help somebody, or like family members who have who have relatives that are going through drug addiction and stuff like that? Like what's if you have any, an advice that somebody could say that you can give to somebody who might have somebody going through something like
My
that?
first thought is don't give up on them. But, you know, it's kind of tricky because my father had to distance himself from me. I'm not sure if he gave up on me, but he took himself out of my life. It was because of those things that I was able to reach rock bottom and then depend on God. So I guess my advice would be to continue to always love on them, even if it has to be from a distance. For us believers, always pray for them, and just don't give up hope. No one is above redemption. And, I mean, as like your hat says, chief among sinners.
Chief among singers.
Yes, I was there, but when you look back at everything, the car accidents, the congestive heart failure, the being a idiot and, could have been killed numerous times. God has had his life or had his hand on my life. And I look forward, kind of what it makes me do is wonder what's next. There's a reason why he saved me from all of that stuff. There's a reason why he's given me a second lease at life. And maybe it's just sharing my testimony and hopefully being some sort of an encouragement to other people that have been or that are dealing with drugs or walking the fence with Christ or whatever it is. Just give your life over to him and let him work the miracles, because it's nothing that you can imagine. It's besides the peace that surpasses all understanding, it's just overwhelming what he will do if you submit to him. So to those people that don't know him, get to know Jesus, read his word, draw close to him. He'll draw close to you, and submit your life over to him and watch the amazing take place.
Wow. And when you're coming, when you go back and you take your scripture, right? I mean, the book that you got when you were in that place, what was it called?
The Bible?
No, but where did you get the Bible again?
In Cap.
In Cap,
Yeah.
that's what I was.
Uh-huh.
So you're in Cap, right? And then you leave.
Uh-huh.
What did you have a structure or a way of diving into the Bible, or were you just like, hey, I'm just opening up to a random page?
Well, at first I remember people saying, I always tell people that I remember them saying, go to read John first, the book of John first. And that's kind of what I did. But then I was like, and I just went, I went to Genesis and I just read it every day through. I remember one time I was in my tunnel. It was towards evening. I had a little not a camera. I had a flashlight, and I was reading my Bible, and I just felt like I needed to get on my knees and pray and thank him for sobriety, thank him for keeping me alive, just thank him. Even though I'm living in a tunnel, I knew he was there with me. And so I just got on my knees and I started praying, and a friend of mine walked over from the little town of Herndon, and he, he's like, Larry, and he looks in there and he was like, oh, he didn't know what to say. And so I ended my prayer and got out, and I go, what's up? And he goes, I'm sorry. I was like, I was just praying, And so pray, read your word, sitting in that tunnel with my flashlight, reading my Bible is what kept me strong. It gave me the strength, supernatural strength, whatever you want to call it, to be around drugs on a daily basis and not partake. He literally took that complete desire away from me. And it needed to be an act of God to do it, because I was the worst, and so just when I share with people, and if I have my Bible, I just want to hold it up in my hand and say to people, read this. Read his word. It will change your world, period.
Yeah. Man, that's so powerful. You literally have me almost like, there's so many things that you've gone through. Like, I'm thinking like, man, where do I even start? Like, where do you have anything, Frank? You got a question?
Like when you were in the tunnels, was there any verse that you would go back to that was you?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or any story in the Bible that would encourage you and lift you up?
Well, being a Teen Challenge graduate, our Teen Challenge verse is 2 Corinthians 5:17, being a new creation in Christ. And so I was kind of, that's my fall to verse. More recently, let me get my Bible here. More recently, yeah, that's right, always. More recently, in Psalm, it talks about, you've saved me from death, you've given me a life, you've defeated my enemies. And think about the people that were trying to off me, for my car, or this, that, or whatever else. I mean, he's saved me from death multiple times. And so, the verses that talk about being reserved for a purpose or being rescued from the hand of the enemies, that hits home because he's done it time and time again. Even the car accidents, where I should have died, left unharmed, again. And that's what gives me, it's overwhelming when you really think about it, because I really don't know what he has in store for me next. But I know he's got some sort of purpose. And so I look forward to it.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
100%. You have such a powerful testimony.
Thank you.
Like what you've gone through, like how many people can you speak to with that,
And every time I've given or been given the opportunity to share, I do. There's been a few times, even in the town of Herndon, where I share about, what it takes to be saved. If you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, you shall be saved. You will be saved. I've actually had the opportunity to lead people in the sinner's prayer. I was explaining to Frank earlier, I normally start with a little bit of a scare tactic.
What's it like?
Well, it's real simple. I tell them what the Bible describes hell like. It's a place of weeping and gnashing of teeth. And I say to people, think about that. The torment and the agony is so bad that you're literally clenching your teeth so hard that you're gnashing your teeth in your mouth. Think about that. And so that gets her attention.
That is kind of scary.
Well, it's the truth, and it gets her attention. But then I say, the Bible says that to be saved from all of that, to be saved, it says that if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, you will be saved. That saves you from all that. And I've had, because of that, people have been like, well, what do I need to do then? Well, it's a simple prayer, just letting God know, that you believe. Well, Larry, can you lead me in that prayer? I'd love to. And I always take that opportunity. It's only happened a handful of times, but I love it, because it's all about kingdom building,
100%.
And so anytime I'm given the opportunity to share, like other people have asked me to share with their friends that are deep in drugs and this and that, I never say no. How could I? How selfish would that be? After what he's done in my life, just I want others to know that it can be done for them too.
Man, okay. You also worked. Okay, you worked in the Calvary Chapel,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yes.
And you were the
assistant director of the conference center.
And so, what's the responsibilities of that again?
Well, I was over the dining room staff, the coffee house that we had on the property, and the kitchen and security. So those were there was two assistant directors, and we had different responsibilities. And so, I made sure that all of those got dealt with, well. I also made sure that, if there was some cost that can be cut in the kitchen to save money, and working with the executive chef and all that fun stuff. But we also then were responsible for the retreaters that came. We had, it was a conference center, so we could house up to 1,500 retreaters a weekend. They would come on Friday, leave on Sunday. They would have, maybe it was Harvest Church that was there, or Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, or whatever. Their women groups. And we could house up to, it could be one large church per weekend, or it could be 5 smaller churches. So then they would have their individual main sessions and their breakout rooms or meeting rooms and stuff. So, we wanted to make sure that that was all prepared for them, and that they were served appropriately, and that they were taken care of, so that way they can just, concentrate on growing closer to Christ. So that's kind of what we did at the conference center, and it was awesome. I got to meet a lot of neat people, serve a lot of neat people. Pastor Chuck would come to the property, and that was always an exciting thing to see Pastor Chuck. And I got to drive his wife, Kay Smith, around once on a golf cart. That was really cool. I was all proud.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And so, we were a ministry of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. And so it was like, it was like the boss coming to the property, And so it was awesome. But the whole thing was a phenomenal experience.
And were stuff that you learned there things that you could implement that made you pretty successful in your endeavors in the hotel industry?
It did because of the fact that we were a conference center and had to deal with guests. When I got into hotels, and it was actually while I was the assistant director of Calvary Chapel Conference Center, I was provided home, housing offsite and things of that nature, but the pay wasn't a lot. And when my wife and I had our first baby, Mercy, there was a need to earn some extra money. And so one of my retreat staff actually worked part-time at the Comfort Inn and Suites in Marietta. And so I said to him, do you think you can get me a part-time job over there? And he goes, well, let me check on it. And he did. And so while with the assistant director of the conference center, I worked part-time at the Comfort Inn and Suites in Marietta for B&L Motels. And eventually they asked me to work there more and more and more and more and more. And then they asked me if I would consider being the general manager of the hotel there. And because it was going to take away from my staff housing and things of that nature at Calvary Chapel, there was a certain amount of money that was going to be needed for my wife and family and I to survive and to be able to afford housing. And so I said, yes, if you would pay me this much. And they didn't want to. We didn't see eye to eye. And it was a few months later, they came back to me and said, all right, Larry, we're willing to pay you what you want. Will you be the general manager? And I did, and I took it. And after doing that for a number of years, then I became the regional manager. But the training and the experience that I got at Calvary Chapel Conference Center, doing what I did, dealing with guests, serving people in that capacity, making sure the rooms were made up right before the next group would come in, all that fun stuff definitely prepared me for the whole hospitality industry.
Yeah, and then you also said you sold the business.
Correct. Yeah, so I, after my divorce, unfortunately, I got together with with a girl that, again, my walk was starting to go downhill, and I got involved with one of my employees, and she became my fiance. But besides working at my hotel, she was also worked part-time at a place called Ready Insure in Southern California, in Temecula. It was an insurance agency. She had her insurance license since the age of 18. So she worked for me part-time. She worked there part-time. And one day I had purchased a car and I needed insurance on the car. So she said, well, I can insure you. And I was like, okay. So she did. One day, sometime later, I needed to make a payment towards that car insurance. So I went with her to Ready Insure, and her boss, the owner of the insurance agency, said to me, well, what do you do? And I was like, well, this is what I do with this, that, whatever else. And she goes, well, why don't you, work for me part-time? You hit commercial accounts, we'll split commission. And I was like, sales? I was like, no, thank you. Well, sometime later, I did need that. And so I called her up. Kathy was her name. She remembers the phone call. And I said, well, I think I'll take you up on your offer. And so I did. So long story short, about 6 months later, I ended up buying half the insurance agency from Kathy. And then it was probably about another 6 months, purchased the whole thing from her. And my fiance, Michelle, and I owned that for a little over 7 years. And Nationwide was our bread and butter company. And they had changed their structure, their commission structure that was going to affect us in a big way. So unless you had a book of $5 million or over, your commission was going to drop. So it was going to hurt us. So we actually sold our agency to a larger agency in Escondido that put them over that $5 million mark. So it was a win-win situation. I was able to pay back to my father the money that he loaned me to purchase the agency, and it worked out well. But yeah, wow. That was my insurance business.
And then, okay, you also going through, so because you sold it, and then around 40, 41, 42 is when you got back into drugs, right?
Yes. Yep. So after selling the insurance thing, I really didn't think about what I was going to do next. And I did some traveling back and forth to West Virginia with a client of mine, taking, doing some things from California over there that they enjoy. And then after that, when my business partner ripped me off of about 12 grand, that kind of ended that whole situation, which was for the better because it was illegal. And so that's then when I put myself on Indeed and was contacted by G6 Hospitality, who is the parent company of Motel 6, and interviewed with the vice president of a Southern California region over the internet and whatnot at first, and then was hired to be the general manager of the Simi Valley Motel 6, which was, again, in bad shape. And basically, they were hoping that I could turn it around, and I did. And even though my walk with Christ during that time wasn't good, everything that I look at, everything that I've done, or that he's done, should I say, since giving my life to him, whether it was in Teen Challenge, put in leadership roles there, in charge of fundraising, having an office up where the counselors were, Calvary Chapel Bible College being noticed by the staff, brought on staff, ended up being the assistant director there, wanting an insurance agency, him making it just whatever I've done in my life since giving my life to Christ, he has blessed. I mean, exceedingly abundantly more than I could ever imagine. And him showing his faithfulness, even when I was sometimes faithless, or wasn't, making him a priority, he's just been faithful beyond what I could ever imagine.
So you would say you were like backsliding a bit, right?
Absolutely.
During those moments.
Yep.
What was your thoughts on your relationship with God though, going through that? Like, were you just like numb to it? Was it just like how was that? Did you even think about God in those moments? Like,
when I got the congestive heart failure and was dying, I would pray, but it wasn't God save me. It was God let me die. Because I was so miserable because of my health. I mean, I had to walk around with a oxygen machine. I was in bad shape. My heart was quitting. And so my prayers went from, oh, God, help me feel better, this and that, to God, just take me. Please just take me. Please, 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 please take me. And apparently he had other plans.
wow. Frank, bro, dude, you're blowing my mind right now. You have gone through so much, man. I'm so thankful for God for you being able to be here with us and just sharing that too, man. Like, it's such.
Well, thank you. And being here, it's given me a platform just to give him all the glory, because it's all him. It's not, again, he got me to a place to where my family wasn't there, this and that. So no one else gets the glory but him. He has done it all. And so being able to share on your podcast and share with others that Jesus is real, give him a chance. He will show his faithfulness like he has done in my life. Even when I wanted to die, he was like, nope, Larry, we're going to do some other things with your life. Maybe it was just for this podcast alone. I don't know. But every time I have a chance to share, I take the opportunity.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. We're getting on about close to an hour. So,
okay.
Frank, do you have any last questions you want to ask him? Come on, bro. I know you got one. He was very thorough. You were very thorough in your testimony, man. It was awesome to hear, dude.
Thank you.
It was real. It was honestly a pleasure. Like, it was a blessing to hear.
I hope it's a blessing to other people as well. Frank, if you don't mind, is a good example, and yourself, of just God continuing to bring people into my life that have just been supportive, amazing, cool, like I said, our forever family here, closer than my own family. And so I want to thank you guys, too, for reaching out and just being willing to listen and to help out. It's been amazing. I love you guys.
Oh, thank you, man. We love you too, bro.
Testimony at Ms. Barbecue, man. It was awesome. I was like, man, you gotta get on this podcast.
Well, it was funny.
The world, man, like it could help people out,
Yeah.
People are struggling with drug addiction or whatever. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you were homeless, and and like look, God's building you back up.
Absolutely. It's all him.
Always been there for you,
There you go. Thank you.
Why does it keep lagging? Okay, man. Well, we're gonna be praying for you. We're gonna be praying for your meeting with your dad.
Good.
With rebuilding of relationship with your kids.
Yes.
Right, and whatever God has in store for you next.
I appreciate that.
All right.
All right.
Do you have any way for if somebody wants to contact you? I'll put it in the description on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, sure.
If they want to just talk with you and stuff. If
Facebook,
you're cool with that.
Larry Metzler II, or if you want to put my email on there or whatever too. But yeah, if anyone ever has any questions or needs some prayer or wants to hear the story again, feel free to reach out. I'm always open.
100%. All that's going to be in the description below. Let us know what you guys thought of the episode. It was definitely a blessing to me. I know it was a blessing to Frank. I know it's a blessing to you, whoever's listening. So give us your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. It definitely helps out. With that being said, take care, guys. God bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.